Keith Richards looked out at the stadium crowd, lights flashing, guitars screaming, and for the first time in decades, he felt nothing. "We were playing Gimme Shelter," Keith said, years later in a rare interview, "and I knew something was missing, not in the song, in me." It was 2022, the Rolling Stones had just wrapped another leg of their never-ending tour. Fans cheered louder than ever, but backstage Keith was silent. Something had changed. Charlie Watts, the heart and rhythm of the Stones, had died in 2021. Steve Jordan had filled in on drums, and while he played with power, the chemistry was gone. "Charlie didn't just play," Keith said. "He breathed with us. Without him, it was like walking with one leg." Mick Jagger still danced like a man half his age. Ronnie Wood smiled, played, and joked like always. But Keith, he sat in the dressing room after shows, staring at the walls. He felt like a ghost watching his own band carry on without its soul. Rumors started swirling. Was Keith done? Was he sick, retiring? But Keith stayed quiet. For over 2 years, fans waited. Then on his 85th birthday, he finally broke the silence. Sitting in his garden with a cigarette and a raspy laugh, he said the words fans never thought they'd hear. "The Stones are over." The world froze. Headlines exploded. Fans cried, but Keith didn't flinch, because what he said next shocked even the band. "I ended it. Mick didn't agree with me, and that's when it got ugly." Keith Richards didn't stop the Rolling Stones because of age or health or time. He stopped them because of truth. "I couldn't lie to the fans anymore," Keith said. "Not after what happened with Mick." Behind the scenes, things weren't peaceful. The press showed smiles, hugs, and sold-out arenas. But backstage, there was tension between the two old friends like never before. It started small: song choices, set lists, studio work. But then came the real crack. Mick wanted to record a final Rolling Stones album, a big one. "The Last Fire," Mick called it. Keith refused. "I told him, without Charlie, it's not real, it's just a brand now." And he exploded. The two didn't speak for weeks. When they finally did, it ended with Keith slamming down the phone and walking out of the studio. "That was the first time I walked away from Mick," he said. "The first time in 60 years. Ronnie tried to patch things up, so did their manager, but the hurt ran deep. Keith felt the band had become a machine. Mick thought they owed it to the fans, and for the first time neither could convince the other. Then came the letter. Keith sent it privately to Mick. 4 lines. "I can't do it anymore, not without Charlie. I love you, brother, but the Stones are no more." Mick never replied, and that silence said everything. "I kept playing alone, but it wasn't music anymore." After the split, Keith retreated. No big interviews, no announcements, just long days alone with his guitars. "I played for hours," Keith said, "but the notes felt hollow. I'd reach for something that wasn't there. The spark, the danger, gone." Fans didn't know this side of him. The world saw Keith as the ultimate survivor, wild, unbreakable, indestructible. But inside, he was grieving something no one could understand. "It wasn't just Charlie," he said. "It was the death of a brotherhood." For decades, the Stones weren't just a band. They were a gang. Keith, Mick, Charlie, Ronnie, writing together, fighting together, making music like warriors. Now it felt like an empty castle. "I went through old tapes, Demos, live shows. I watched us in 72, 89, even Glastonbury. I cried watching Charlie tap his sticks before Sympathy for the Devil. Who knew that little gesture would haunt me?" Keith still wrote music, sometimes for himself, sometimes just to remember, but he refused to release anything, not under the Rolling Stones. "I won't fake it," he said. "If it doesn't have that old blood and magic, I won't sell it." Then came the final blow, a call from a major label offering millions for a farewell tour, even a virtual Charlie on screen. Keith hung up before they finished. "You can't replace ghosts," he said, "and I won't dance with holograms." What I told my grandkids about the Stones. On a rainy afternoon, Keith sat with his grandkids. One of them asked the question he'd been dreading. "Grandpa, why don't the Rolling Stones play anymore?" He smiled, not sad, not bitter, just real. "Because the magic left," he said. They looked confused. One of them whispered, "But can't you bring it back?" Keith picked up his old Telecaster, ran his fingers over the strings, and strummed a few soft chords. "You see this guitar?" he asked. "She remembers everything. The nights we lit up stadiums, the fights, the laughter, the songs that made millions scream, but she also knows when it's time to stop." The room fell quiet. "And stopping," he said, "isn't always failure. Sometimes it's respect." He showed them a picture, 4 men laughing backstage, arms around each other, a photo from 1994. "That's what the Rolling Stones were," he said. "That, not stadium lights or ticket sales, it was us." One grandchild asked, "Will you ever play again?" Keith nodded slowly. "Always in here," he tapped his heart. "But for the world to see, no, that part of the dream is over." But then he smiled again, a small grin, half mischief, half truth. "Unless Mick calls one day and says, 'Let's do just one more for Charlie,' then maybe I'll pick up the phone." The phone did ring, but it wasn't Mick. Months passed after Keith's quiet confession. The world had moved on, music shifted, New artists rose. The Rolling Stones became history, loud, eternal, but silent. Then, on a cold morning in March, Keith's phone rang. It was Mick. It was Paul McCartney. "Keith," Paul said gently, "I heard what you said about Charlie. I get it, man, I really do." They hadn't talked like this in years. Two titans from rival bands, two survivors from an era that had burned almost everyone else. Paul didn't call to talk business. He called as a friend. "George, John, Charlie, they're all gone now," Paul said, "but we're still here for a reason." Keith just listened. "You and Mick built something the world can't forget," Paul continued. "But maybe it's not about carrying the band, maybe it's about carrying the spirit." Keith put the phone down that night with 1,000 thoughts spinning. He lit a cigarette. He stared at a framed photo of Charlie, arms crossed, that grin on his face, and that's when Keith made his final decision. He didn't call Mick, he didn't call Ronnie. He picked up a notebook, sat by his garden window, and started writing a letter, not to the fans, not to the press, but to Charlie Watts. The letter to Charlie. "Dear Charlie, it's been a few years now. The world still talks about you, still plays your beat, but I haven't played since that last tour, not like before. I tried, mate, I really did, but something left the room when you did. You remember that gig in Tokyo, 95? You kept time like you were pulling the stars into place. I missed a cue and you smirked at me, never skipped a beat. That was the night I realized you weren't just the drummer, you were the gravity. After you left, I thought the band could carry on. Mick sure did, but I couldn't feel the rhythm without your pulse behind me. They wanted us to finish with fireworks, one more tour, one more album, but I knew it wasn't ours anymore. It was theirs, and that's not how we started, is it? We started in smoke-filled clubs, raw, hungry, angry, laughing through every storm. And you, always calm, always cool, held us together when we were ready to fall apart. I didn't want to end it. I just didn't want to pretend you'd hate that, so I ended it for you, for all of us. The Stones were more than a band, we were brothers, and now, with one of us gone, the story's done. But here's what I didn't tell the world. I still hear you. When I play late at night, your ghost taps along in the room. Always just behind the beat, always just enough. I miss you, mate. And wherever you are, I hope you're playing clean, tight, smooth. Tell them up there they better keep time. Love always, Keith." And so the Rolling Stones didn't end with a bang or a farewell tour or a massive final show. They ended with a letter, a memory, a heartbeat. And in that quiet moment, Keith Richards gave fans one last gift, the truth. The Rolling Stones didn't die. They lived exactly as long as they were supposed to. And that, as Keith said in his final words to the camera, is what makes it beautiful.